Okay, yeah. Well, thanks for inviting us, I guess. So my name is Brandon Ta, and my age, you said? Okay, I am 59 years old, and I've been in the United States since, I would say, since 9 years old. In my career, I'm in technical sales from a technology standpoint. So supporting sales on technology product, networking equipment, and collaboration. Absolutely. So we, I guess, April 30th, when the fall of Vietnam, is when we left the country, and I clearly remember a lot of the detail, the journey as we get over here from Vietnam, and a long journey until we settle on the U.S. soil. Yeah, I think I'm going to start out with the fact that in Vietnam, our family is very military focused. Like my brother was in the armed force, my oldest brother was in the armed force, as well as my older brother are in the armed force, and we're heavily supporting, like the South Vietnamese Army during that time. So I think, the one of the thing that I think about is, if we would have stayed, we would be prosecuted, and so we've trying to find our ways onto the U.S. soil. I think when you start looking at being in a country that's been in a war zone, the environment is significantly different in terms of behavior, in terms of being able to articulate, express what you want. So over there, we're a little more timid. Where's the wars happening? There's curfews. There's a lot of control aspect in the environment. When you come over in the U.S., then there is a lot more freedom. Freedom of speech, the ability to say things that you normally think about, but when we will express. I think that's so key, and it takes a long time to really get adapted to the fact that we can say what we think and what we want to, how we feel, right? There's a lot of things that we could not say, and it takes a long time to do that because there's different aspects that you can express now versus then. I'm not sure where else you want to go with that, but that's kind of high level. Okay, so I think the key point is, being like back in 1975 when we settled. Before this, I settled in a smaller town, and we're the only Vietnamese family in the whole city. We're the only one. So there weren't a lot of, I would say, um, services that's available to us. And I think, like if you look at here's a like extreme example of our understanding of the services that's available in the U.S., right? So when we came here, my parents are fairly old. I think they're in the 50s, and we have a very large family. And there were two young folks, myself and my brother, who's a little bit older than me. In Vietnam, you have to be able to generate income to take care of your family. And so the thought was they're all older, we have a big family, they won't be able to give us a good upbringing and make sure that we're successful. So the first thing I think that is impactful to me was the fact that they already thought like they cannot take care of us. So they put us up for adoption because they didn't realize there was services available financially to support family just came over without any basic income. So we were put on for an adoption. And matter of fact, it got as far as that family coming over, meeting us, and I guess vetting us out and seeing how we were, and if it's I would say if they can adopt us, right? And at that point, they said, "Are you aware that there are services available that will help you financially to get you on your footing, so you can actually can produce?" We weren't aware of that, so we were on for adoption. And after that, we learned about that. That's when we stopped the adoption. I think that's really a big change, right, in terms of services. Secondarily, for example, basic necessity like grocery, some of the Asian type of food was definitely not available. And I think being in a predominant non-Asian environment is we're kind of like the unknown, like the interest of all the whole community, knowing like what is this family like and things like that. We're the only one that ever came there originally, so that was a big deal for the whole place. I think the one thing that I would say that was a bit of an impact for us was when we came here, there was not there was a huge language barrier. So, traditionally, if you look back in 1975, there's no internet, there's no access. So our only way to be able to translate was one dictionary that we had from Vietnam, I think, and the whole family was using it. We're talking about like 10 people using one dictionary. And for every word that we have to consume or understand, we would have to translate that word for word, put the Vietnamese word on top, and trying to piece that together. And it sometimes is incoherent because it's not a fluid sentence, right? It's just word by word translation. So I think that was the biggest challenge. I'll give you an example of coming to the US, starting in elementary school. They throw me in right into the midst of a regular school system, right? And I'd have no English vocabulary at all. So for the period of about 3 months, they sent out, I was in the back of the room on the line, they would put all the homework question, it would pass down. And the only thing I did for 3 months was putting my name on there and the date. And I would pass it back with no answers because I didn't understand anything at all. And that was pretty demoralizing, I lost a lot of confidence because I was like, I'm smart, but I feel like I am not smart because I don't understand a lot of these things. I mean, literally 3 months of passing back homework, it's empty. So I think that's kind of illustrate kind of the transitional, and it's a transitional shock that happened to us. So I think the Asian culture is really focused on academics. So we place academic really very high in our priorities. So their priority, and they really encourage us to really get into the system from an educational perspective. So I don't think there was a succinct point to learn the Vietnamese language. It's like, please learn all the English language so that you can get up to speed and catch up, right, to the folk that's in the mainstream, like all the kids in school and everything else. But I think natively, because we just came over, everyone only speaks Vietnamese. So naturally, we learn Vietnamese automatically. We don't have to worry about that. But learning the English language was kind of, I think, was the biggest challenge. And that was a challenge that our parents asked us to do, right? Want to make sure you're challenged by learning all the English language, be able to do well in your classes, and, focus on academic. Because for us, Asian, it's all about the success, is academic achievement. So I think I have some of this story, and I also I was lucky enough that I have pretty good memory. So example is, I think, my parents are very old. My mother is 102, and my father passed away. He was in the 90s, but at that point, traditionally, they're in the North, and during the separation of the North and the South, the migration, I think 1940s, 44 maybe, they moved down to the South. But I mean, the culture is really drastic, right? There was my mother got married very early, and you get into a family, and there's a lot of demand for you as the spouse, right? The female spouse coming in, the parents are very strict, and they dictate a lot of things that you have to do. So there was a lot of restriction. I think she had to go through some of those. And if you look at some of the traditional movies in Vietnam, that's well rooted back in the days, that they would endure a lot of, I would say, significant changes and difficulty to get adopted into that family. So I would say the example is getting married early, and the thought about having secondary wife or tertiary wife, is totally open at that point, and it's really primarily focused on the male, right? What the male really wants. So I think that's key. There was I'm going to say torturous tasks that she has to endure from the in-laws in getting there. I think from a journey perspective, coming here would be, since we're from the military family, right? We challenge, we find. I mean, I'm going to say we're in the middle of Vietnam, Da Nang, right? And then luckily we were associated with military. We were able to get some of the young kids, like myself, my brother, and our nephew, back to the South Vietnam, where it was safer, because the battle was happening there. Where we got there, and I'm going to say that we got back to our home in South Vietnam, and I think in about 2 days, 3 o'clock in the morning, I opened up my eye, and my whole other part of my family, all my sister and brother was in middle of Vietnam was there. And the reason that happened was, the middle of Vietnam, we lost that part of the city and they were escaping. So I didn't have to endure that, but I know that as an example, right? We knew in the Air Force Base where this C-130, right? The plane that comes down, pick up the cargo, but now it's people, would be. And so they would line up us there. As the plane was landing down, they don't really drop the C-130 gate that big. They raise it pretty high. So you have to stand up and you gotta be pretty tall to grab it and get yourself on there. There was flood of people. One flood of people was trying to get in. The other flood of people trying to flank them going across. So there's clashing of people. And I remember we have boxes, and my brothers, luckily who's in the military, people was crowded onto the plane. While the plane was moving, he got boxes and he would push on top of their head, would slide on top of their head, and then it slide onto the plane. He literally pushed all those boxes in. My sister was getting pushed aside and he jumped on to that plank. He pulled up because he's in the military. He got on, he strapped himself, and then he was pulling my sister on board the C-130. So we were fighting pretty hard, and we see unfortunately we saw some horrors, parents would throw their kids on top and would fall, but the plane was going and people was running. So we were in the midst of that. And luckily my brother was able to, he strapped himself on the C-130 and he pulled all my sister up except for one. So all of them got on board, but we're only able to do that because my brother knew where the plane was. Luckily my brother was lying there and he didn't know what to do. Everything kind of comes together. He was luckily there, not in the war at that time, that battle, and he was there to pull a lot of people up. And they were begging to come up, and the plane was going this is running on the runway with the plane moving, with the gate is up to your above your head, and you're trying to get on that plane, and you're fighting with the rest of the people trying to get themselves on there. So that's one thing. I think the other piece was my sister, who was not able to get there. She found her way to Hue, and in a city. My brother went there to get her. I mean, imagine trying to find a person in the chaos city and get her back to South Vietnam was impossible task. I'm gonna say there was someone that was really looking out for all of us. The fact that we were able to get the younger kids to Vietnam ahead of the fall of the city, the fact that we got there at the right time when the plane was there, we were able to fight all those people and get all my sisters except for one, I don't think she was there, on the plane, and got there safely. And then my sister being in the midst of city with chaos because everyone wanted to leave that city, Hue, and is surrounded by the North Communist country, military, and we will get her out. That was pretty amazing. And then I was gonna end how we get over here was also dramatic. Being a military family, we're very focused on the military. So imagine, if you may, I would say this: the vision would be we know we can't get out. We would have those machine guns sitting there pointing at the door that we have. We have I would say our house, there's a yard in the front and there's a gate. We would put our two gun there, and then we M16 sitting on the side fully loaded, because we know, I guess in our mind, we know that if it's gonna happen, we would have to fight our way until the death, right? Then we have boxes of ammunition, but we have grenades in there. So we have those sitting there because we're gonna fight if we could make it out of the Vietnam. But luckily, we made it out. And this is kind of I would say, the coordination that we did. So in Saigon, there's a section where you land and you get free fuel, right? And the point was, my brother was going to, with his friends, they're going to get 2 helicopters. They're going to pick us up. So, we all saw the shooting, all the chaos happening in Vietnam, right? After the fall of Hue and Da Nang in the middle, then south is Saigon. We saw all that happening. We know the battle's happening. We saw the corner of the city all lit up like fire. We knew that was where the fueling happened. So we said, oh no, my brother could not make it. Whether he's in the midst of that and the motor hit it, or it's already hit, he can't get his helicopter out. And we okay, we lost it. My mother was very sad, didn't think my brother made it. And we're okay, we're gonna hunker down, we're gonna face reality, and that's the front door gate, and we're gonna fight our way until the death. And we have kids, we have a lot of women. I think my father was the only one. My father was the only one as male, and my brother, 2 brothers. But the next brother is only 10, so it's questionable. So my brother in the military, and then my father, who's 50 something, and he hasn't fought. He's in regular private service. We lost all hope. I'm going to tell you that we lost all hope, and we're like, okay, this is it. We accept our reality, and then we're ready to go. And I think it was a very tense situation. And during that time, there was a lot of, I would say, infighting, like in terms of like, oh, what should we do? Should we escape? Like our plan kind of fell apart. Like one person's like, okay, we have all this thing, we're gonna fight through till we die. The other person's like, we gotta run. Different opinion. Luckily, and I don't know exactly when, two helicopters circled our house, and the sign was circling our house twice. Back our house is a field with grass, and they would land there, and we would run through there. Okay. When we lost all hope and we're ready to go, and we're like, okay, we're done. I think it was like maybe half an hour or an hour. We accepted our fate. We're gonna die here. And then the helicopter circled, and we're like, oh my God, this is like a sign from God. So it circled twice, and we're like, okay, we're gonna be ready. We all ran back with our bags right at the gate, and we opened the door halfway. And the reason we don't look at that the back door gate, that field, because there's a lot of people want to leave. So we look at it, we want to make sure it lands, right? As soon as it lands, we open the door and we come out. We come out waiting at that area, everybody would be circling that field. It's a field with a lot of grass. We play out in the field when we're young. Landed, and then what they did was they had the side, well, then on the side they have machine gun, right? So they had that there because they don't want anybody to come rush the helicopters, right? So we got in, all of us got in, one helicopter took off, second helicopter took off, and then it was coordinated. So we had one of the, I would say the ship's captain's brother with us. So when we got out in the sea, we knew where the ship was. We had to circle, and that was the one that I was scariest because we were circling. I would say at 90 degrees. I was like here, but it held us on. But it was like I was seeing the sea down this way. It was circling because they need to show the captain's brother. Like the down there, they would have binoculars. And they were looking up to make sure his brother's there. If his brother was not there, he would not let us land. So he saw his brother. He gave the sign, and we would land. Okay, so we landed. I get off the first helicopter, the second helicopter, and then my brother still had ammunition. So my brother and his friend, they took the helicopter back into land to fight. So they went into land. They fought until they had no more ammunition. And then they would land together, and they would transfer everybody onto one helicopter and come back out to sea and land on that, I guess, ship. Carrier. Yeah, as a carrier. And then we got a PT ship that ultimately brought us into kind of a little more cargo type. It's like a repair ship to repair other battleships. I don't know if that's enough. I have plenty more, but that's as far as our journey here. I think there are both. I think there's commonality and the differences. I mean, the commonality is that we all struggle to get here by different means. So the way that which we get here is different, right? Obviously, my story is probably not as unique because there might be a couple other that use the same, I guess, method to get here, right? I think where it's different is the dynamic as we as a family, right? A little military focus versus other family that's focused on other aspects to get here. I think it's that part is different. I think whether it's through sea, air, or other method to get here is different. I think the acclimation is also different as well. Like we're pretty much, as I mentioned earlier, my father and mother was very rooted back in the way she's born in like 1922. So their thoughts on the culture is different. We're very, I would say, Asian focused, right? Let's modernize. So the adoption or the adaptation to the culture is a little bit more challenging. It's harder. We're very, very traditional. We used to write. My father used to write like Vietnamese/Chinese type wording. We wear we follow a lot of the culture that the Chinese has as an example. But other folks that I know, even from school or that we know about, they're a little more modern, more westernized, and able to get acclimated significantly faster and easier. And sometimes, the funny thing is they think we're like very traditional dinosaur, but it's rooted. I'm pretty proud of that, right? Some of the tradition that we hold today, even today, where we wear traditional clothes during very high, like traditional. My mother's birthday, my father's birthday, very big to us. We use traditional. We pray and we I would say kneel to them and things like that. And even like the expectation of speaking, right, in terms of like how do you speak to an elder. There's a lot of certain things you don't say to an elder at that era. We still hold some of those, and I think it does help. For example, I'm going to say like it helps us to make sure that we're grounded with respect, we're grounded with priorities, but then we adopt other westernized aspect for openness, open ideas, and adapt to things that would help us, like being part of the communities. I think that's key there. My father was a lot involved with communities as well, in terms of because we're new and he's older, they respect the elder. So he talks a lot at some of those functions in the past. Okay, I think like when we first came, obviously my father's very involved with the communities because he's well respected from an age perspective. We definitely also celebrate home very heavily, like date and all the different days and what we're supposed to be doing, cleaning the house, painting the house, prepping the place for date and everything else. I think that when I went to college, right, that's when the roots that happened. So I was part of the, and every college has that, right? Vietnamese Student Association. So I was participating heavily in that in terms of, every year we throw out an event, we have our own outings, and we get together with that. So college brought me back, right, into the roots, and it was me participating versus, part of my family. My father's driving some of that. I think as we start moving towards, our kids being graduating, right? And it's really interesting that they're here, they're in school and they participate in the school at elementary level. When they get high school, they do some of the VSA a little bit, but it's amazing when they go to college, which is like I couldn't imagine. But and for both of our kids was that they automatically gravitate towards the Asian community and participate in the VSA. And I would say the funniest thing is like, I was part of VSA, I was in college like 30 years ago, and they're like, and it's funny that and we didn't tell them to do that. We did not. They on their own automatically sign up the VSA and do all the dances with all the fans and stuff like that with the VSA. And then our son, he just is freshman now. He's like, yeah, I'm going to sign up for the VSA on his own accord. We didn't have to ask them. One thing I'm going to highlight that was really interesting insight that I got from them was this. I said, through the course of school, most of your friends has been like Caucasian, Indian, but there's not a lot of Asian there, right? All of a sudden, like both you guys, when you go to college, why do you now have predominantly Asian friends? And you know what the answer was? And I just want to highlight this because I thought it was very insightful, was they said, because we taught them, the priority, the different value, they said, we have Caucasian friends, American friends, everything else, right? But when it comes to the values of education, focus on education, we find alignment with those kids. And I was like, really? He said, yes, because some of those other kids, they have different priorities. And I need to find kids that would study the same level as I do and put down the same time. So I would study together with them. And ultimately, it comes out to be Asian friends, which is like, I was like, oh, interesting that happened to be the case. But they participate in that. And obviously, going forward, Tết and everything else, we celebrate home, we celebrate our family. And when you go to Tết, like all the shows and everything else that they have. But at home, we actually pray to the ancestors. We have we wear traditional clothes. We have Tết. We joke to the older folks. We do everything that we do back in the days, obviously, right? So I say there's two parts I want to look at. So first thing is, when we first came to Vietnam over here, we think in Vietnamese. So I would translate slowly, and that translates slowly to be a little more automatic, right? First, like I think word for word, then it's sentence, and it's automatic. Then you start thinking in English as an example. I would say that we always wear two hats. So, like, for example, when at home, we would behave differently. When we engage in a work activity, we would flip a switch and would be thinking in a modern work type. I think that I would identify myself as being in both hats. In some case, I'm very traditional. In some cases, I'm very traditional in thinking to make sure that we teach our kids. In terms of identify myself, I say I would be a hybrid. I wouldn't say totally Americanized or Westernized. I say a hybrid. I would say more traditional than most. I'm going to say most of the folks my age. Unless they're like in the 60s, right? And it just came over from Vietnam, then it'll be that. But I'm like in the mix of that. Hindsight, I think they have the key value and attribute that we teach them. I mean, those would be their true north. Wherever they make a decision, I think I truly believe that they would base it on those things. Vietnamese language is, I think it's important for them to learn. And I think hindsight, I should have done a better job of doing that, or we should have done a better job doing that. I just didn't want us to be at a disadvantage. I think we over-rotated a little bit, and I think we should have kind of pulled kind of an even keel on that. I'm not sure the impact of their communication, if they would be bilingual, maybe. I don't think they would be, but I was very concerned. I didn't want to lose out on any disadvantage on that front. A matter of fact, the one thing I want to highlight that's really interesting was that our son, we brought him to Vietnam, and our son, our daughter, we brought him to Vietnam when they were very small. He actually said, like, I think a week ago, he goes, Dad, I really want to go back to Vietnam because I don't remember the trip that we made in Vietnam. And he asked for that, which is like, I'm like, out of nowhere, he asked for that. So I think automatically they have curiosity, going to the clubs. Curiosity, oh, I want to go back to see. I think they do have that in mind because they know where they're coming from. So I think like the one thing I'm going to say, like perception-wise, right? Everybody has an opinion. So example is, I mentioned earlier, my family is very military focused. So our discussion has always been like freedom and democracy, right? And we always have this thoughts about communism, right? And it's very traditional, right? As I come to the U.S. and we have a little more open thoughts about things, and there's still a lot of people who still dwell on the past about communism versus democracy. Obviously, rooted in me is I don't like communism, right? But I think the key point is we have to go forward, and I think a lot of people don't go forward from there because there's things that is out of our control. So I'm thinking that we have to take the country for what it is, and I think the key point is looking at things that we can make the country better, not the country, but I would say the people. I think that's key. I think at this point, right, things that we can't control, we can't control. What can we do to help so the people will be in a better position, whether it's their daily lives, educational, income, right, retirement, whatever it's going to be. I think it's all for that. I would take aside what it was in the past. There's vision of what Vietnam could be with communism. There's vision of what Vietnam could be with democracy, as an example. Obviously I want democracy, but I think at this point, what can we as a society or community do to help the people there to live a better life? I think that's key. I'm not sure anything else we can control. Yeah, I think that there's thoughts about what the war was, what the result could be. I think that we're at a period where it's a hybrid between the different government type. I think for the future, I'd say again, focus on the people to make them better. I think that there'll be resistance to adaptation. So example is as you start bringing commerce, trade, various aspects of the trade into Vietnam as an example, there'll be just like here, there's resistance about adoption of Vietnam. Vietnam is going to have resistance, adaptation of some of those key commercialized aspects, right? Because they could impact the government type. And I think they are aware of that. I think there's definitely folks that is set to hold the barrier for that. I think if we for the future, if we as human or Vietnamese would look at how do we break down some of this barrier, and really breaking down in terms not like forceful breakdown, but really explain the benefits to both the people and also the government, right? As commerce comes in and as these barrier is able to be overcome, not being held back, like, you know, we won't adopt these other trade I would say trade approach or trade process because it would impact the government type or the way that's being run. I think if those clear understanding can be articulated, and it's all everybody kind of be on one true north in terms of bettering the country, bettering the people, and bettering the government, I think that would be the way to approach and be able to make sure that we help the country out. So I think the key point was, you know, I came out of college, I started working, right, for the government for a while. And then, you know, as we are a small community, Vietnamese, we socialize, right? And it happened to be that one time my friend and I went over her house and we socialized, you know, with tennis being, I'm going to say like tennis is one of the sport that Vietnamese kind of like to play. So we're playing tennis, and that's how I met Quynh. That's a hard question. I'm going to say about 1994, 1995. around that time, yeah. I think I can bring up a few examples. I would say, you know, being the only family in that in the city, Asian family, Vietnamese family in the city, and actually they put a news article because we're the first family that came in that city, right? Being up north, and then you know, there's obviously there are some not so great moments, right? There's a bit of discrimination that happens, right? So I think that we have to work through some of those, being bully example, right? Discrimination. I think that's key because we're like new, right? As an example, we're the new thing, a new type of person that's there. I think we're challenged when knowing the environment and knowing like really limited with what we do. Like here's, I want to give you an example. Like my sister, even though she's in a different area, you know, we would be given like, for her job, she was given, I think it was like 25 cents to drink coffee, and the rest you got to bring your own going to work. You know, we're really have to be super frugal to be able to survive. We would take like, I would say, pretty tough job, like factory job. I think that I remember one where I had to work, and we're pretty young. I don't know if it's still legal, but you know, like there was a place called Comet. They make plastic plates, plastic cups, and we were there. We're like, it's rolling off. We're like looking through all the glass with the light shining on our eyes, and for cracks or any imperfection, right? We're working all these labor jobs, mill. I would say like that was one, like sewing as an example. We look like all these jobs to be able to help ourselves get better. I mean, even looking at school, I don't think we have a chance to go to school. Like public school, yes, but going to college, for example, I don't think my brother would have that any of that possibility. Here's an example. My brother, very skilled, he's a helicopter pilot, fairly well educated, right? He came over and he could not get a job, right? Well, I guess so, but what he did was pretty, I would say, creative. He would advertise in the paper. He says, you know, anybody would sponsor me to get my pilot license. He has many hours. I mean, he would fly better than a lot of folks. He flies some major combat battles that you would not see. He would fly in like deep surrounded area, and he was like, his helicopter would be full of bullets, cracks everywhere, and he would come out of it. Some of them, sometimes he would say like, it's a miracle he would come in. Like he would make through cracks everywhere on the plane, broken glass everywhere, and he would fly back out. Bunch of metal for that. But I would say this, he advertised on the paper, he said, anybody would willing to pay for this much money, I forgot how much it was, to give me this many hours on this helicopter, right? I would pay you back. And we got a sponsor, and you know, that person paid for his flight, right? How many hours on the helicopter? He got his license, and he's got a job right away as a helicopter pilot. But my point was, you know, it's really difficult. You have the skill set, but you can't do the job because it's the diploma or the certification is not there, and you don't have the ways to get those, and you have to find your way to get that, right? I think those are the difficulty that where we didn't have enough support system to help us to achieve our capability, our current capability, not our overarching like goal capability, but our current capability. We could not get it done. So I'm gonna round that out. I think it's key, not only from here, but in Vietnam. So in Vietnam, I say that a lot of my sisters made a lot of sacrifices. They worked, I would say, in a military compound, like dining hall, save the money. So I was able to go to a school in Vietnam. So we start out with that first, right? A lot of sacrifice there. All my sisters. The ability to come over here is based on my brother, who's able to get us on that ship and get over this side. And then I think the other piece that I didn't really allude to is one of my sisters was married to American, and it's really the goal was to get our family over. So she made that sacrifice, got married, and came over here first. So when we came over the U.S., well, actually Philippines, then got into Pennsylvania where there was camps there. My brother-in-law, they sponsor us. So we get a sponsor because my sister. And then even there's those sacrifices. And then come on over here, all my sisters have to take all the other jobs, not going to school because they could have gone to school, but they had to take any job to make sure that we have food, we have the ability to go to school. And I want to say because of all that work, right? Vietnam with all my sister, the journey over here for my brother, and then all the sacrifice they have made throughout my younger years to get us to get a college degree. So I would be the first to get the college degree in my whole family. And then my brother is the only one who got the college degree. And then afterward, one of my sister got a degree. But before that, no one had made it. I think my mother, I don't think she, because of the era she was in, I don't think she was, she got to even like elementary school. But I'm gonna say this though, some of the stuff that she does around the house, in her creativity, ingenuity, and engineering ingenuity, I say she would be a better engineer than I would be if she would have the opportunity, because some of the stuff that she designed, I was like, oh my God, I don't think I would think creatively to design it mechanically with things that, even with education. So, I mean, they didn't have it. They sacrificed for me to get there. So yeah, I want to say one thing is definitely thank to all of them. And I do say that on occasion, what they've sacrificed for us to get where they are, right? So I think that opens up a really good debate. So the first thing I'm going to say is, being from Vietnam here, we didn't know about, financial assistance, right? That's why I was my brother was put on for adoption. Same thing, right? With what was the question again?
Major.
Yeah, the major. They didn't understand about anything about education system. So we just go to school. Their goal, their own purpose is to provide food and living for us. They don't understand anything about that. Even going through high school, they didn't understand any of that. So I have to manage myself, and then we try to learn as much as we can. And it's not like the internet, you can learn. I'm going to say that we were going with blinders on. We didn't know anything. We would just follow the flow. So when you look at major as an example, when I was in college, I didn't know the major. I said, oh, all my friends are doing engineering. I'll do engineering. That's all that happened. I was not educated enough to know. Matter of fact, my brother who went from, he was doing really well in high school, and he was very well liked by the dean in that school. And he goes, oh, did you apply for college? He goes, no. He didn't know to apply for college. Did you know that? He didn't know to do that. So the dean put a call into the school to get him the interview, to one of the high school to get the interview. But he didn't even know to do that. So we weren't educated at all to know what to do from a community perspective, financial, education-wise. That's how bad it was. Now, taking that take to account, now that I'm able to get an education, we really very close. We help our kids to know where to go, what to do to really reach their full potential. I'm going to say that, right? Matter of fact, I want to tell you, I transferred one school to another. I applied to the wrong campus. I was like in Baltimore versus in the University of Maryland, College Park. We didn't know anything, like literally. And I look back and I was like, multiple times, I was like, why we didn't know a lot of things. Like, I don't understand why that happened, but now it's better. But I still always wonder. A couple of times I would ask students, like, how come we don't know any of these things? I guess because maybe my parents doesn't know, maybe the internet wasn't available. I don't know what the answer was, but now I think we are. And I think we need to really drill down on that, because I think a lot of people from Vietnam, not the one that's more educated, but from the rural area, when they come here, I think they're going to be hitting some of the stuff. Like, I remember some lady was asking me, here's an example. She asked me, like, oh, my son is applying for a job, but do they have to get, what is that called? I think it was a government job. How does all this work? You know, the background check, you know. So he didn't understand any of that stuff. And the kid's applying for it, and he graduated. He didn't understand any of that stuff. Like, so I think that there's a certain area that we need to really look through to help some of the folks that doesn't have that background. Reach out, I would say. I forgot to elaborate. I got my career in engineering. And I worked on the engineering initially based on that degree. But I think that, remember I said that I chose that degree based on all my friends. Every Vietnamese is going to engineering, so I go engineering. We never really go to, let's say, exploratory or undecided major and really explore all the different major and find the right one for us, right? I think that's the better way to go. I did not. I went doing engineering. I got a job in engineering, and I transferred to IT. And I'm going to say that I love it to the point, initially, I love it to the point where it's almost like, if you remember, Vietnamese has, they call it dưỡng. It's almost like drama, like thousands of video drama. And some people would watch that, and they would watch it 2, 3 in the morning. When I transferred IT, that's how much I love IT. I mean, I was literally at Borders bookstore, that I'm not sure it's still around. All the technical book that's there, I read every single one of those. I mean, I loved it to that point. So yeah, I mean, I didn't come out of engineering. I did IT, and I loved the IT job a lot. I mean, literally the past 30 years, I love doing that. So I say, yes, I love my job now. And then it transfer a little bit. And one thing I want to highlight, that, you know, us as being Asian, we're very focused on technical, math, physics, engineering, the detail down to the 0.0 something degree, right? And when my first job, I got in, and they say, well, Brandon, we are looking for sales, technical sales, right? I was like, oh my God, sales. God, I hate sales. I want to like learn all these knobs and button and these knobs and bolts and stuff like that. But you know what? When I got into sales, technical sales, I started to realize that sales has a lot of strength because you have an overarching view of the solution. You don't look at like kind of minute, microscopic detail of things, right? Myopic detail of things. You look at the overall. You understand the benefits of the solution, and so you see the overall, the outcome, the impact, impact to the customer, the impact to an organization of the solution that you provide. That, I mean, I do interact with all the other engineers too, because they're part of our team, I would say. And when I talk to them, they're very so focused down. They don't understand that, and I try to help them with that. Matter of fact, you know, I present at a lot of our conferences. We have like conferences in the U.S. and EMEA, and also Asia Pac, and I present a lot of those. And some of the senior engineers, as we looked at it, I talked to them and I said, and I told them, like, you know, where you are now, if you need to go to if you want to get a promotion or get promoted to a high level, you really need to look at kind of the capability of what solution provide, and how to see the transformation or the impact to organization, right? Because ultimately that's what the customer's looking for. They're really not looking for a screwdriver or something. They want to look at fixing a car, make sure the car runs well. So I actually articulate that to a lot of the folks that attended my session, and they still contact me on a regular basis, and they say, yeah, Brandon, you know, the thing that you tell me about 3-4 years ago has a huge impact on where I'm going. And it's open up, to the point of the blinders part of it, right? So, yeah, I think the one thing I'm going to say that the way I look at it, right? We're young. We learn from school. We learn from our peer. We learn from experience. And as we go through, elementary, high school, and college, and then as we start learning, and the learning doesn't stop, we start learning from work, right? And when we hit our 60s and we retire, I would say two things. I'd say the first thing is that, you have all that knowledge, institutional knowledge, the experience that you have. That's very precious. But as we retire, we just go retire. I don't know how to harvest those experience, those knowledge to help the community, to help everybody else. That's one piece of it. And I would say the second piece is that we just like stop our productivity and we just don't use those knowledge. I think that's huge waste. I think that if somehow we can harvest those, and then also the younger generation really truly believe some of the experience or the knowledge that those folks provide, it was significantly shortcut for them to get those information. And that's what we do with our kids. We say, as I learn these things, right, just like knowing the education system and knowing it now, we talk to them on a regular basis, and best practices I provide to them. And I think that that's just for them. But, all the next generation coming up, if they can pull some of the, I say, useful nuggets that we have, I think they can shortcut kind of their path to where they need to be. I don't know if that helps.